University was founded on July 4th, 1881. And and with that, he founded it based upon trying to give the citizens of Macon County an education in labor and to be able to learn how to be self-sufficient. And so when he did that, he did it based upon like agriculture and teaching them how to be self-sufficient and self-reliant, to be able to build self-sustainable communities for themselves. Now, this was frowned upon definitely because at the time it was not popular to educate African Americans. And that's why it's important for us not to take education for granted, because a lot of people like himself and that came before him and after him really paid a major price in trying to educate African Americans to be able to be productive citizens in the society that they were living in. Now, when you look at that monument that you were at, Booker T. Washington, that's called lifting the veil of ignorance. And the monument stood for the slave was sitting on an anvil, but yet he had a book in his hand and a compass as well, because it was based upon education and industry. That's what it was founded on, education and industry. This university and those buildings that is come from the monument, Wilcox A, Wilcox B, and Wilcox C, those were originally, and it still is, the School of Architecture and Construction Science, which was founded by Dr. Robert Taylor. Dr. Robert Taylor is a pioneer in architecture science and construction science because what they did here on this campus. The first students of Dr. Robert Taylor built this campus by hand, and they made the bricks one by one, individually. So when you see these buildings that's still up and standing, they made those buildings brick by brick with hand, no machinery. They did everything with their hands. So that shows you the kind of ingenuity, the kind of intelligence, the kind of resilience that they had to build these buildings by hand. And Dr. Robert Taylor, I mean, if you've ever heard of Dr. Robert Taylor Home, it was named after him because of what they done on this campus. And that's another reason why Tuskegee University is the only college in the nation that's a designated National Historic Site by United States National Park Service. The only college that is a National Historic Site. So Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, a lot of these gentlemen that we hear of, they have been proclaimed as two of the most revered Americans, African Americans in the history of the United States of America because of the work that they did on this campus. Booker T. Washington, he worked tirelessly for this university. The cause of his death was exhaustion because he worked so hard to establish this university so you can have a future education for generations and generations to come. George Washington Carver as well did the same thing. It was a labor of love for him. Now, as you see, this is where Booker T. Washington is actually buried at. This is his site. And it was said that he wanted to be buried this way. His tomb was on this side because at one time all the instructional facilities on campus faced inward. And so he wanted to be buried this way because he wanted, even in his death, he wanted to have, he had ideology, to be able to always look or watch over his students. And so he really cared, he loved this university, and he did great things in establishing Tuskegee University. He raised funds, he traveled the country, he spoke, he did a lot of great things here, and this is why we have this great institution that we call Tuskegee University today. Now over here is George Washington Carver tomb. Most of you all don't know this and probably they didn't teach it to you in your school. They didn't educate you on this. Are you listening? You hear me?
I'm listening. Yes.
George Washington Carver is the greatest scientist and inventor that ever lived.
They don't let you know that though.
But you're not going to learn that in school. He had hundreds and hundreds of inventions, from the sweet potato, the peanut, the soybean. He took natural resources and made inventions. He was a scientist, he was an agriculturalist, he was an inventor, he was a botanist, he was an artist, and he was a theologian. And he did all that, and he did some of his greatest work on campus. That's where he's buried right there. And he didn't want to have a tombstone, he wanted to have a bench, because even in his death, he said he still wanted his students to be able to have a conversation, sit down and have a conversation with him. And through these trees right here is where that metal roof building is. That's the first building of the College of Agriculture, Environmental, and Nutrition Sciences that he founded. College of Agriculture, Environmental, and Nutrition Sciences is the house that George Washington Carver built. And this is why we're known as one of the greatest STEM schools in the country and producing African Americans in STEM. Now, you won't learn this, but like I said, once again, all the inventions he did, anybody can name one of his inventions, and please don't say peanut butter. But everybody here has been affected by something that George Washington Carver did. If you wear cosmetics, George Washington Carver. The dyes that's in your shoes and your clothes, the wax that's on your leather shoes, George Washington Carver. It's a lot of the food products that we eat, George Washington Carver. The cars that we drive, until George Washington Carver invented the dyes to go into the paint, all cars came in one color, and that was black. But if it wasn't for George Washington Carver, we wouldn't have these different colored vehicles, because Henry Ford of the Ford Motor Company used to solicit his help to work for him. He wanted George Washington Carver to move to Dearborn, Michigan permanently, but George Washington Carver loved this institution so much that he wouldn't do it, but he would still work for Henry Ford, and all the money that was ever paid to him always came to the university. When he passed away, this is where he used to live at. He used to live in this building connected to this hotel, which is called Dorothy Hall. He lived there. When he passed away, they went into his room, they found a trunk under his bed, and when they opened it, every check that was ever written to him by the university was still in there and never cashed. How many of you do all that great work for free? That's the kind of passion that he had, not for himself, because he wasn't receiving no glory, but he did that for you. So you can come here and get an education. If you want to be a scientist, if you want to be an agricultural, environmental science, nutrition science, if you want to do something in wildlife, forestry, animal science, vet science, and he did that for you. He did that so you can come here and have a foundation to be able to become one of the best in your field. Now, he also, if it wasn't for him, we probably would have lost World War II. See, they won't have that in the history books. But the United States had a shortage in the metal pins that they would use for a lot of the machinery and on their equipment. But what George Washington Carver did, he created a synthetic plastic to replace the metal pins.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for George Washington Carver, we'll still be driving in tank kind of cars, because the Ford Motor Company was the first motor company to create a synthetic material automobile, and that's because George Washington Carver and the soybean. He made those synthetic materials out of soybean. So like I said, he's the greatest scientist and inventor that ever lived. And that's just a few things he did. That's a very minute few things that he did on this campus, but he did a whole lot more. That's why we have a George Washington Carver Museum here, and you can see a lot of his works. Now,
They said dope.
Oh, okay. Now, if you turn around and look at that building straight ahead, the reddish brick building, that is what you call the historical John Andrews Hospital. We used to have a hospital on our campus. Right now it's the National Center for Bioethics Research and Healthcare, and also the Student Union is in there, and we have courses there as well. College of Arts and Sciences are housed in there as well. But it's historical because Rosa Parks was born there.
Wow.
Right in that hospital. Another person that was assumed to be born there, but they couldn't find her birth records, but she was born in Macon County, and at the time, no African American could be treated at any other hospital in the whole county except for this hospital right here, and that was Zerlnell Hurston, the famous Renaissance author. Now, this building, the National Center for Bioethics Research and Healthcare, was given to us or donated to us by the Clinton administration. President Clinton did a national apology because of the most horrific tragedies to mankind happened in Tuskegee, Alabama. Anybody ever heard of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
Mm-hmm.
Heard about that?
Yep.
They experimented. Yes, sir.
Oh no, I was just raising my hand.
They experimented on African American men to see if the syphilis virus, if we was more susceptible to the syphilis virus, and they want to see how did it affect us compared to how did it affect our counterparts, the white men, and because what they were trying to do is just, and it was that was the longest research or experiment on mankind that ever happened. That experiment took place for over a span of 70 years. 70 years. But when it was time, when they finally allowed them to get the treatment, where you think they could get the treatment at? It was only one place in the whole county that would treat African American men or people, period. So we have, listen, not the experiment didn't take place on campus. It took place on an off-campus site, but they were able to get treatment when the treatment was available here at John Andrews Hospital. Now, not only that's the National Center for Bioethics Research and Healthcare, but over to the right of it is our College of Nursing. Anybody interested in nursing? One. We have one of the oldest accredited nursing programs in the country, the oldest in the state of Alabama. Until last year, we had a 5-year streak of 100% success rate in passing the NCLEX, the National Exam for Nursing. Not too many schools can say that. But that means we prepare you so well that you don't have to retake it, you don't fail it. We get great placements here. Tuskegee University is a premier university. That's why we're one of the few colleges that made the Forbes list this year of America's best colleges, and not too many schools can make the Forbes list, but we made the Forbes list. Washington Post ranked us number 9 best school overall in the southern region. U.S. News World Report consistently ranked us as one of the top schools in the nation producing African Americans in any science, technology, engineering, math, biological, and life science fields. And so we're going to prepare you to go into the field and be great at whatever you do. Now, we're going to go back this way, and we'll go into the chapel for a short period, and then we'll try to sum up the tour, but we'll go this way. We'll take this route. On Carey in here, so please, because of that, 1957. The second one was erected in 1969. At the time, you didn't have architects building buildings with no exterior 90-degree angle, because it's the 90-degree angle where they put the chief cornerstone at. But the first building was, they said that it burned down because of an electrical fire. Lightning hit it, and usually when lightning hits a building, it travels down those 90-degree exterior angles. So they didn't want that to happen again. So what they did, they designed this building. And at the time, they didn't think it could be done. But because of the ingenuity that they had, they built it anyway, and this became one of the country's marvels in architecture design. So it's a great, that's why your voice will carry. That's why you don't really need a lot of microphones in here, because it just carries. Now, right here, I'm gonna give you a little story. We're gonna start kind of over here. These pictures are the pictures of the president's wife, past and present. So, starting right here, our first principal was Dr. Booker T. Washington, right? So, we only had 7 presidents in the history of Tuskegee University. We're unique in the fact that most of our presidents have long tenures. Now, even though we only have 7 presidents, I know there's more than 7 pictures up here. That's because the first 3 pictures are Booker T. Washington wives. Not at one time. Right. The first wife, Fannie Norton Smith Washington, when Booker T. Washington was commissioned to come here, he came here first. She left her behind, and she was on her way traveling here, and she fell off a carriage and suffered a head trauma, and she passed away and never had the opportunity to come here. So, believe me, to be a great leader, you might have to go through some things and endure some things. You know, you have to, but this is what he had to go through to get it. Now, Olivia Davidson Washington, he married her. He had 3 children by her. Now, she was actually the first female principal of Tuskegee University. The first. She was an educator here. And so they weren't married that long. You see 85 to 89. It wasn't that long, but in those 4 years, they had 3 children. But in that they had their house caught on fire, and Booker T. Washington was not there, but her and the 3 children, they got out the fire, but she died later from smoke inhalation. Wow. So she didn't get a chance to really raise her children with Booker T. Washington. So Booker T. Washington got married to his 3rd wife. And I know what you're thinking. It's not true. I know, because usually when I go from here to here to here, it's like, and like, what? But she's the first African-American woman to ever be inducted into the Alabama Hall of Fame. She just passed, that's all. She was black. And she was the second and final lady principal ever to be at Tuskegee University. She did a lot of groundwork to the point where a lot of people credit her as being one of the founding members, only because of the great work that she did here. But she was the first African-American woman to be inducted to the Alabama Hall of Fame. She did great work here. His final wife, she survived him too.
What was her name?
This is Margaret James Murray Washington.
Thanks.
Margaret Murray Washington. Now, our second president was Dr. Rusa Moulton. Robert Rusa Moulton. Robert Rusa Moulton. This is his wife, Jeannie D. Booth Moulton. Now, they were accredited for bringing the Tuskegee Airmen project here. Everybody seen the movie Red Tails? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Know about the Tuskegee Airmen? Yeah. They brought the Tuskegee Airmen project here. And so they was housed on our campus in what you call the Emeries. And then what they did was they also donated land to what we call now Moulton Field, where the Tuskegee Airmen Museum is. They donated that for them to train on. They housed them here and they trained them on there. Now, he did great work here, but then also our 3rd president, Dr. Frederick Douglass Patterson, he married Catherine Elizabeth Moulton Patterson. He married the daughter of Dr. Robert Rusa Moulton and Jeannie D. Booth Moulton's daughter. Smart man. And he became the 3rd president. And not only the 3rd president, he was the person that founded the United Negro College Fund. Right here on campus. And we participated in this. And also, they donated land for the Veterans Administration Hospital to be built here in Tuskegee, Alabama, right on the other side of our campus. Now, our 4th president is Dr. Luther Foster. This is his wife, Vera Chandler Foster, and they're known for building the College of Engineering here at Tuskegee University. Look, we have a great engineering program. If you're interested in engineering, if you're interested in aerospace engineering, 75% of all your African-American engineers in this country graduate from here. 75% of all your aerospace African-American engineers graduate from here. Just like 75% of all your African-American veterinarians in the country graduated from here. So we produce a high number. Engineering students, sky's the limit. We have mechanical, chemical, electrical, aerospace, and if you're interested in civil engineering, that would be under our construction science. Well, a great program. 5th president, Dr. Benjamin Payton. This is his wife. That was my president. He did he's credited for doing a lot of the building and beautification of the campus. So a lot of this beautiful campus came from what he did, the hard work that he put in. He also was the first chair appointed to the Black College Council for the United States government. Then Dr. Roshan, this is his wife, he was our 6th president. He was the first one to have a short tenure. He was here for 3 years. And then now our president, Dr. Johnson, and his wife, Shamika Johnson, they're our current president. Now this is the chapel. We just want to kind of walk through. Anybody sing?
It's a little bit quiet. I don't know what to say.
Quiet, anybody quiet?
I'm in surprise.
All right, look. These are our past and present core directors. I know you say, we don't need to hear about that, but let me tell you something. History-wise, our first core director is William L. Dawson. If you don't know about William L. Dawson is one of the most historical figures in writing and composing music. He wrote most of your famous Negro spirituals. Anybody saw the movie Selma?
Yeah.
The theme song was performed by our choir. Some of his songs was featured on that album. And when John Legend and Common performed it live on stage, still it was our choir backed them up live on stage. because his Negro spirituals are such a unique genre, they are requested to sing his songs all over the world. They have 2 award-winning albums in 2007, 2010 that perform his songs. And they've been to the White House countless number of times because when you watch movies like Selma and different movies that depict life for slavery, slaves and everything like that, some of his songs are featured on those movies because he wrote those. Now right here is what we call the singing windows. Now where everybody at? I want everybody to hear this. So, is this everybody?
Ish.
Come around, stand up and come around this way. I can turn this up. Because I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna mean it. All right? This right here we call Singing Windows because it depicts a story of what the slaves had to go through. Now, when you see this, they depict, they kind of identify what slaves went through what the children of Israel went through. Right? Anybody know a little bit about the Bible? Pharaoh, children of Israel, they were in hard bondage in Egypt, right? So they put him right here. Now this it tells a story like this to go from bottom right to left, all the way up. So you have to understand that when you take your education for granted, when you take your liberty for granted, when you take all these things for granted, you are really disappointing and letting down a lot of people that shed their blood and cried and lost their lives for you to be able to have this opportunity. That means basically you basically disrespect them because you don't care about where you came from and the history and what it took for you to even get to the opportunity that you have right now. Look, if you want to be liberated, if you want to be emancipated, if you want to be educated, you must first go to school and be educated. While you're in school being educated, make sure you're dedicated. And when you're dedicated, you won't go out into the workforce and be eliminated. I know somebody that came from your area, came here, I got him accepted, and he's done one of the greatest discoveries known in this world today. And he came here not even knowing if he can get in. But the potential that's inside you is limitless if you let it out. If you let it out. Now these people, yes ma'am. You gotta go? Look, this right here. So when you see this, these Negro spirituals that's in here, it's telling a story. They came down from Africa, but they said way down me, they're looking for a savior to bring them out of this, right? So when they bring them out of it, then they still trying to keep their faith and hope and their resilience in there. They trying to stay true to themselves, but they trying to get out. But it's hard. It's hard. But they steady fight what? The battle. They fight it, they climb their ladder. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. So not only they climb their ladder, they got Jordan Road. See, Jordan was figurative of a barrier between the wilderness and the promised land. Right? So they know that if they can just get over Jordan, which to them was the Mississippi River. It wasn't Jordan, but to them it was the Mississippi River. They could get over the Mississippi River, they know they can get to freedom, right? Rise up, shepherd, and follow the star of Bethlehem, because they didn't have navigation, they didn't have GPS, they didn't have smartphones, they didn't have all that. But they knew that if they followed the North Star would guide them to freedom, right? Y'all know about that, a little bit about the history? It'll guide them to freedom because they know that's all they have to do. So they just kept the faith, they kept, but look what they're doing here. You see this? See how they holding hands and they going up? I wish this picture can depict us today, but it's not. If it was a picture today depicting what we do to each other, it wouldn't be holding hands, pulling each other up the ladder. It's this person right here pushing everybody back down. But what you have to do, you have to have unity, continuity, you have to stick together. You cannot allow yourself to be oppressed here because you can only stay in slavery if you're ignorant. But you cannot put nobody in slavery or bondage if they're free up here, because education is the very basis of freedom, because my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. So they learn. And the thing about it, they're not learning, they died because they wanted to learn. And if they got caught with a book or trying to learn or trying to read, they was lynched, they was hung, they died. But now you got it free. So now this is what they had to go through so you can be up here. And so you can't even appreciate the victory unless you embrace the struggle. You can't appreciate the success unless you knew what you went through to get there. And you can't appreciate it, but you need to know where you come from and the history it took for you to even get to the point where you have that opportunity where you can shine, where you can celebrate, where you can blow the trumpet, where you can get to the point where you're walking across that stage. Because if you walk across the stage, you know what it took for you to get there. You know what it took for your parents to get you through there. You know what it takes for your grandparents to be able to raise your parents, for you to be able to be raised and get here. So the thing is, you don't take for granted what has been placed before you, and with the tape that has been spread by Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, all the great figures that came before you, that suffered, that bled, that did all the things they did. Why? For you to be able to have an education, for you to be successful, and so you can be able to not forget the ones that's coming behind you, because Booker T. Washington said, a person that leaves a place must leave it better than what they found it. So what he did was, he left this place better than when he found it. And you need to do the same thing, because why do something only for yourself and don't benefit the ones that come from behind you? Why do that? See, that's what we're taught today. We're more about ourselves. We're individuals. But if those people was only about themselves, we wouldn't have Tuskegee. We wouldn't have Hampton and Howard. We wouldn't have all these great universities. They thought about you before you was even existing. All right, so that's the burden I want to leave with you, so you can be able to.